what do these exposures implicate 5 to 10 years from now? Doesn't seem that anybody wants to give me a straight answer. Mr. Johnson is a resident of Caldwell County living close to the facility. I'd like for him to comment about some of his experiences with the facility as well as with the state regulatory agencies.
Hello, I'm Roy Johnson. I live about a little less than a half mile from Caldwell Systems in Caldwell County. My involvement in this thing really came about, I guess, in an odd way. My wife and myself had a new son in 1986, and our house shrunk, so we decided we was going to build. So we built a new home back on the farm where I grew up. I lived basically in the same neighborhood all my life, other than I lived in a subdivision about a mile or so away from it. Upon going back to the community, I wasn't aware that there was anything unusual up on the hill behind me, but a place to burn sawdust and stuff. They built a plant there in 1977 to burn furniture waste. Anyway, we built a new home, and the house wasn't even completed yet, and some of the neighbors that lived there that had been complaining about this hazardous waste incinerator wanted me to go to a commissioners meeting one night. We had an unusual circumstance in Caldwell County, it was for me. To see this mass of people is almost frightening, because the small community we live in, the closest thing we had to an elected official to be involved in county government was a deputy sheriff, and he was way down on the totem pole. Anyway, I went to one of these meetings, and I got to listen to this high school chemistry teacher that grew up in the same community. He was a couple years older than me, but we still knew one another when we saw one another. But he got to telling me about some of the chemical aspects of this. Well, I'm not a chemist. I have no background in chemistry whatsoever. And what little I've picked up on the last 4 years has been self-education, which y'all can do just as well or better than I've done. Anyway, what made our situation super unique was that we had a facility that was actually owned by the county, supposedly regulated by the state, and it was doing business with the federal government, so we didn't have a whole lot of people to turn to. Anyway, one of the county commissioners asked me if I'd be willing to serve on this study committee. I said, yes, I will. And I thought it was going to be maybe a 1 or 2 meeting deal and over with, and it's been nearly 5 years and I'm still involved in it. I can speak to y'all probably as a father as much as anything. The William that he talked about is my son. Caldwell County already has a bad record of air quality. It was one of the worst counties in the state for air quality. And I got an opinion on that. The best place to hide a tree is in the forest. So the burden of proof on finding out something was wrong on this thing seemed almost impossible when we first got involved in it. Anyway, we built a new home and we moved into it. And in the meantime, I was trying to go around and get some information from the state. I thought that they were there to protect me. And in my opinion right now, and I do feel guilty about it, what I did was not much worse than volunteering my family to be a guinea pig. That's very much the way I feel. Okay, I'm sorry. Anyway, the state gave us a pamphlet on information. I believe Mr. Bill Meyer gave me mine, that gave you the way an incinerator was supposed to be operated. Well, shucks, I took that little brochure out and I looked and said, man, well, I know he's doing this wrong, and this wrong, and this wrong. So it was going to be a cinch on maybe closing this facility down or get him at least to clean up his operation. It didn't work that way. It didn't work that way at all. Any attempt made to get information without a whole lot of rhetoric attached to it was merely a waste of time. We did not have a toxicologist in Caldwell County. We did not have a laboratory that I know of that was certified and capable of doing any water sampling, soil sampling, air sampling. So we were having to rely on information that the state made readily available. So we decided we was going to be real good, so we're just going to take samples out of the same holes that they supposedly took samples, and we would send our analysis to another lab out of the state of North Carolina where they knew they wouldn't have no influence on them. And the citizens group found out that there was massive contamination where this facility was located at. What made us feel so bad about it was that the residents, and it's not an affluent community either, was spending money to have soil and water samples done probably 8 years after someone should have already done it. When we would ask a representative from the state in the environmental departments, they would say this facility is in substantial compliance. I've heard the term so much that substantial compliance really doesn't mean anything to me because there was no law to comply to. My experiences with my son in particular, we knew something was wrong with him. We thought he might have had asthma. We had him tested for asthma and he wasn't asthmatic. And I could actually walk out on my carport of my home if we had what you call a temperature inversion. That's where the smoke is forced down. And we could actually see smoke in the floodlights. We could complain and we would get no response. I'm trying to think of some other things, but anyway, the bottom line to it, I guess, is that if there are not some people involved to protect you, you are going to have to protect yourself. Looking back at Woburn, Massachusetts, Love Canal, any environmental disaster that's occurred in the continental United States, a grassroots organization like y'all more or less has been the ones that found the problem and solved the problem if it could be solved.
The last issue I wanted to discuss was occupational illnesses. Initially, when I became involved in this, I heard the term auto fuel and was told by county as well as state officials that auto fuel is automobile fuel. Well, it isn't. It actually is OTTO fuel, and it's highly toxic torpedo fuel waste. It was coming to Caldwell County from naval bases all over the world, all over the country, all over the world. When naval workers were forced to work with this stuff, they had to wear full contamination suits, self-contained air packs. Workers in Caldwell County wear short-sleeve shirts, short pants, defective respirators, and we're told that it really isn't that dangerous. This resulted in daily dermal as well as inhalation exposures. Furthermore, the company and workers knew of state inspections well in advance. This allowed the company to send sick workers home and the facility to be cleaned up in advance. My question to the state was, why did the state warn the company in advance? Are you trying not to find something? Why was there such a buddy-buddy relationship between the state and the company at the expense of the workers? My best information has come from folks like Mr. Killen. Why did the state ignore greater than 20 worker statements provided by the Caldwell County Incinerator Study Group documenting workplace and residential exposures? They chose to close their eyes. Therefore, they could not see. Therefore, there was not a problem. They haven't changed their tactics at all. The results of these occupational exposures have been devastating. I'm presently treating at least 9 workers who've been significantly adversely affected by their occupational exposures. Keith, Gordon, and Ken are totally and permanently disabled. All are suffering from toxically induced brain damage. They have seen exposure specialists as far away as San Francisco. I got smart. I sent them out of the state. And a neurology specialist at Duke. Keith, for example, suffers from toxically induced damage to his frontal lobes, resulting in a severe memory disorder. Toxically induced damage to his basal ganglion, resulting in Parkinson's disease. Toxically induced cerebellar damage, resulting in ataxia and difficulty walking. And toxically induced hypothalamic damage, manifested by his fluctuations in blood pressure, as well as his sweating spells and his flushing spells. All of these gentlemen suffer from severe, progressive, short-term memory disturbances, similar to those seen in Alzheimer's disease. Dr. Cohn, Dr. Clark, and I are all very distressed with the magnitude and progression of their illnesses, and we are at a loss to what we can do to halt the progress. Keith has been out of work for 2 years, and he continues to get worse. These illnesses could have been prevented with proper state inspections, regulations, and interventions. Keith's illness was actually presented 2 years ago to state medical officials, as well as the chief of staff to the governor's office, Mr. Phil Kirk. We were assured at that time that, quote unquote, things would be looked into and things would be taken care of. Keith, right, excuse me. That's all right. Keith hasn't been able to work since that time. He's got a workers' comp claim, and folks in the audience probably know that workers' comp takes forever to get any decision on. He's out of work. His family is having a problem making ends meet. He's been taken advantage of and abused by both the company and the state, and is struggling on a day-to-day basis. I'd like, before I close, for you to meet Keith and hear a little bit from him. Keith.
Hello, my name is Keith Killian. I used to work for CSI. And I, along with everybody else, was lied to. We were told these things were hazardous. It was hazardous waste. It was watered down. Things wouldn't hurt you. So we were put out there into it just like you. You know, you go out and do your job every day. Well, that's what we done. We done our job. We done what we was told to do. We was told these things wouldn't hurt us. Now I'm 27 years old. I've been out of work for almost 3 years. I'm on disability. I used to play football, basketball. I used to be pretty active in sports. Now I'm lucky to walk. You people will be lied to too if you have this hazardous waste place. The government didn't do anything. They told call systems every time they were coming. I was sent home almost every time they came. I wore shorts up there because I couldn't wear pants. I had places all over my body. And I still have places all over my body. I really don't know what to tell you people. Except for don't trust nobody. They'll ruin your life like they did mine. We have mistakenly assumed that the state regulatory officials are responsible for regulating and investigating facilities.
We really want to hear what you have to say, but we cannot hear you in
sorry. Sure. My apologies. I and we have mistakenly assumed that state regulatory officials were responsible for regulating, investigating facilities to detect and prevent improprieties. Instead, I and we have unknowingly relied on three monkeys: hear no evil, speak no evil, and see no evil. The effects are obvious. It hurts me to see Keith deteriorate. It hurts me to see Keith unable to remember, unable to walk, and unable to get any help. Keith walked into my office looking like a leper. His body was eaten up in a rash, and he had seen 3 or 4 other physicians before he came to my office. I was told when I complained to state medical officials that I was going to be taught a lesson. My name was turned into the State Medical Society. I was a troublemaker, I guess. As was Mr. Kuntz, as was Mr. Johnson, as was Mr. Gorman, as is Mr. Killian. Subsequent to that time, I have been commended by the County Medical Society and my Board of Specialty, the North Carolina Academy of Family Physicians. And I don't mean that, I mean that in a humble way. I mean that in that it has taken a hell of a struggle and a lot of tears and a lot of fight and a lot of persistence and a lot of teamwork. It has been very difficult for myself and my family, for my office, for my friends, to deal with this idiocy. The state's role in this unfortunate fiasco has created a great deal of physical and emotional suffering already and can be classified as a cunning and purposeful incompetence. Let me repeat that term. The state's role in this can be classified as a cunning and purposeful incompetence. The state has willingly engaged in an active conspiracy of silence. Their strategy has been consistent. A problem does not exist if we cannot see it. And if we cannot see it, and if we refuse to open our eyes, it does not exist. The state has had their eyes closed to this matter for greater than 5 years. Their overall objective is to import highly hazardous waste not only from North Carolina, but from adjoining states into a mega facility that they can call their very own. I pray with you tonight that the following things happen. I pray with you tonight that the legislators across the state of North Carolina have the courage to listen to the facts that we have, documenting the improprieties of the state regulatory agencies. I pray with you tonight that state legislators have the courage to intently listen to the experience, the exposure histories, and tragic results of the state's purposeful unwillingness to do their job and their devastating effects on unfortunate individuals such as Mr. Killian. I appreciate your time tonight.